Everybody, and welcome into a new edition of the Patriots Beat podcast here on the CLNS Media Podcast Network. I'm Evan Lazar, joined as always by Alex Barth, sporting the best team in Boston right now on the cap. I appreciate that.
The Revs are pretty good too.
Let's not sleep on the Revs. But yes, go Sox. The Revs are pretty good. Go Sox. That's the exciting part going on in Boston right now. We're going to talk about the other team in Boston for the next hour or so here on the podcast, as we always do. And as we look at this game against the Cowboys, I want to look at some things from a big picture perspective as well. Just what are the biggest ailments for the Patriots right now, and how do they fix them to try to get this team on the right track? At 2-4, it feels like a hole that they probably won't dig themselves out of. Most teams that start the year 2-4 do not make the playoffs, but this is a 17-game season, Alex. This is a longer year. There are still a chance. There is still a chance, especially with the way that the rest of the AFC East looks outside of Buffalo. You have another game against Miami. You have this weekend's game against the Jets. Those games look a lot easier on the schedule than maybe you thought going in, especially with Miami. But regardless of that, the biggest picture topic that I wanted to start with this Dallas game is what I wrote today in my film review on CLNSmedia.com. And that is, I came away from watching the coach's tape of this game thinking more positively about the offense moving forward than the defense. And I say that because with the offense, I see progress. I see improvement. I see development out of Mac Jones. With the defense, I feel as though the Patriots are sort of who they are on the defensive side of the football. They're an okay defense. They're an average defense, but they're not a great defense. And that's probably because they traded Stephon Gilmore, but that's not here nor there. The point being, defensively, I feel like this is their talent level, right? I feel like this is their talent level. Offensively, I see it improving. I see guys winning man coverage. I see Mac Jones becoming more aggressive, and you're starting to see this click a little bit more.
So I agree and disagree with what you said. I understand.
I'm glad you can do both.
I understand where you see the progress from the offense. That being said, you seeing it's great. The coaching staff doesn't seem to see it because in the beginning of that game, and this was so I put this loss on the offense. I'm going to say some things about the defense that are going to piss people off, but buckle up, okay? In the first half of that game, they were doing things offensively that we really haven't seen them do this year that were working. The throw up the seam on the touchdown to Hunter Henry, Evan, correct me if I'm wrong, I think that was Mac Jones' best throw in the NFL. Just everything about it, the timing, the placement, all of it. But as soon as things went south, they bunkered down and they went back into what they've been doing all year, this overly conservative. They didn't embrace the strides the offense is making. They didn't continue to let Mac Jones and these tight ends do what they've done. There were some questionable personnel decisions from the offense as well. I don't know why Isaiah Wynn was put in that game. He hadn't practiced in 2 weeks. He was coming off COVID IR. I'm not entirely sure why. I thought he was active on an emergency basis. He comes in, he got beat. Obviously not as bad as Yadni Kajust, but he got beat for a big play
on third down.
Momentum play on third down, right? When, they have Justin Herron, Michael Owen was their tackles. I don't know why Wynn was in the game. So this gets to my point of what happened with the defense. The Patriots were out-snapped. They were out-repped in this game, 82-50, a 32 snap differential. For context, the Patriots average about 62 snaps per game. They'd actually run the same number of the plays as opponents coming into this game. They'd run 313. Their opponents would run 313. But about 60 plays a game. You ask that defense to play 82 snaps against one of the best offenses in football, and at a certain point, the breaking point's going to come. Through 59 minutes and 40 seconds, they held that offense to 20 points. They held that offense, which coming into the game was one of only two offenses in the league over 50% on third down. They held that offense to 3 of 13 on third down. That's a winning effort from the defense. I know people want to point to the yards. I don't give a crap about the yards. I really don't. There's no. Do you see yards on the scoreboard?
Right.
I don't give a crap about the yards. They held them to 20 points through 59-40. You should win that game. Meanwhile, the offense had 6 drives between the second and third quarters. Those drives lasted 3, 3, 3, 3, 4, and 5 plays. 5 of them ended in punts. 1 of them was the strip sack. That's not enough. To look at it in a different context, Evan, you take the last drive of the game away, the game-winning touchdown, because you can't respond to that. The game's over.
Right.
The Cowboys had 5 drives where they scored points, 5 drives where they didn't. The drives where the Cowboys scored points, the Patriots responded by scoring 22. Coming off drives where the Cowboys scored, the Patriots' ensuing drives resulted in 22 points. That's pretty good. You have to have a good counterpunch if you want to win in this league, and that's not always easy because you probably don't have great field position after your opponent scores. But what's more important is you need to score after your defense makes a stop. That's short fields. That's opportunities to flip momentum, to take the game. Coming off drives where the Cowboys did not score, the Patriots totaled just 7 points, and they came on that first 3-play drive after the 4th down stop. The defense gave this offense opportunity after opportunity after opportunity to put this game away. The offense never ran with it. And yes, could the defense have been better on the 3rd and 25? Sure. Absolutely, they could have been better on the 3rd and 25.
Yeah.
But that play would have never happened. That play should have never happened if the offense ran with the opportunities the defense gave them. Now, why the offense stalled out, I'm sure we'll get into that. That's a separate conversation. But that's why I put this game on the offense, because the defense did their job. The defense stopped the Cowboys time and time again. But that offense, that Cowboys offense is just so damn good. It was only going to last for so long. 82 plays is too much of an ask. 3 of 13 on 3rd down is too good of an opportunity to squander.
Yeah, so in the beginning part of this game, the Patriots had given up 10 points through the Cowboys' first 6 drives of the game, right? They forced a 3-and-out at the first drive of the second half. They forced a 3-and-out. They had given up 10 points. They had turned them over twice, right? The fumble on the goal line and the interception by Kyle Duggar. And then they turned them over on downs as well. So really 3 turnovers, essentially, for the defense in the first 6 drives. Then the next 6 drives to end the game, or 5 drives, end the game. The Cowboys go 80 yards touchdown, 66 yards field goal, 50 yards missed field goal, 55 yards field goal, 80 yards touchdown to win the game. So when you look at the drive chart by Dallas, you see the effect of being out there for 92 plays.
82. 92. So
account.
Hang on real quick.
You just see it right in front of your face, right? Of the defense just falling off a cliff after the first 6 drives of the game because they've been out there for so long. Yeah.
And real quick, because you said 92 instead of 82, but it's funny you bring up 92. That was the play total. So Patriots fans should be familiar with this mechanic. In Super Bowl 51, the 28-3 comeback, the Patriots out-repped the Falcons 92-46.
Yeah.
This is a strategy teams use to win football games. They just try to out-rep the other team and just wear the defense down. A team like Dallas is perfectly built to run that sort of offensive strategy. And it comes back to, the defense was on the field for 40 minutes. They just needed a rest. They just needed a rest, and the Patriots offense couldn't give it to them.
So I want to talk about why the Patriots offense couldn't give it to them in the second. But the last point I wanted to make about the defense, the reason why I said 92 is because Bill Belichick calls it 92 because there was 10 offensive penalties against Dallas in this game as well. So 82 plays that counted, 10 more plays that didn't count. But even though those plays don't count on the box score, you still have to go out there and play the down.
Oh, right. Yeah. Okay. Fair
right.
enough.
So that's why you talk about 92. So the defense held the dam for 6 drives against Dallas. The dam broke on the 7th drive, right? And from that point on, they were in trouble. On the offensive side of the football, there's 2 things at play here that both, I think, are when we start to get into the conversation about how do they dig themselves out of this, can they dig themselves out of this, need to change to dig themselves out of it, right? One of them is the pass protection in the offensive line play. So the Patriots on their, now I got getting caught up in numbers and possessions here. I believe it was their 4th possession of the game. They had scored, or 3rd possession of the game, they had scored touchdowns on the first 2 possessions of the game. The short field from the Dallas 34, they scored the touchdown, and then they scored the touchdown on the next drive, going the length of the field in 4 plays, right? And that was the drive where Ramondre Stevenson got hit up the seam. Hunter Henry gets the seam for the touchdown. And the Patriots offense, probably the best scripted drive of this season for Josh McDaniels, was that 4-play, 75-yard touchdown drive in the first quarter. So the next drive after that, they hit a touchdown to Jacoby Myers. Jacoby Myers finally gets in the end zone. Everybody's jacked up. It's 21-7. And there's a holding call on James Ferentz on the offensive line, right? That wipes out the touchdown. The very next play, Yadni Kajus gets dusted by Randy Gregory, and it's a strip sack, and they turn the football over. So you go holding penalty on the offensive line, followed by a strip sack allowed by your right tackle in 2 consecutive plays to completely change the momentum of the game. Right? You go from 21-7 to Dallas now having the football down 14-7 after a turnover. So huge momentum swing in the game there. On the other third down issues, you have Isaiah Wynn getting bullied by Randy Gregory as well on a sack on third down. Mac Jones missed one throw to Jacoby Myers on a slant that would have converted a third down. They didn't convert there. And then the 3rd and 1 run by Brandon Bolden. So offensive line struggles on both the 3rd and short yardage play and the sacks, right, were huge. And then you also get into this conversation, which everybody's been asking the coaching staff over the last couple of days about 4th down decision-making and the fact that the Patriots are not playing aggressively. So based off, and I know you hate the math, Alex, but based off the math, the Patriots are now the most conservative 4th down play calling team in the entire NFL. They go for it and go for it situations less than any other team in the entire National Football League. And on top of the 4th down decision making, they also kneeled out the half before halftime. And Belichick's excuse, I pray to God that that's not the actual reason why he nailed out the half. And there's something bigger at play here that he just doesn't want to tell us about because he doesn't want to throw Mac Jones under the bus, or he doesn't want to throw his offense under the bus. And he's saying, oh yeah, we just wanted to go in to halftime and eat our peanut butter and jellies and regroup and take a breather and get the game plan ready for the second half. If that's truly what it was, then that's despicable. Right? That is just a terrible reasoning. So you couple together the offensive line woes, the sacks, the penalties against the offensive line, and you add into that the fact that the Patriots basically flat out refuse to go for it on 4th down, regardless of the situation. And that's how you get 6 drives in a row where you basically go nowhere.
So I will say with the 4th down in overtime, that's not... They've been doing that even towards the end when Brady was here. They stopped going.
This is not new.
Remember that?
No. Very important.
Yeah. Matt Dolph pointed this out on our Patriots podcast. So you can check out 985thesportshub.com. But what do those 2 situations have in common, Evan? Would it be between kneeling the ball out at halftime and not going for it on 4th down? Not going for it on 4th down in overtime. They chose to take the offense off the field. Everybody's looking at it, the 4th down decision, in talking about Bill trusts the defense too much. But what if he doesn't trust the offense enough?
Yeah.
What if we're not? I think people might be looking at that backwards. Because first of all, you have to get the 4th down. Shout out to Sean McDermott and the Buffalo Bills. You don't just going for it doesn't mean you keep moving on, right?
Yeah.
Second of all, you then have to keep going and score. They wouldn't have even been they would have been just over, not even at midfield. I forget which 46.
They were at the 46, their own 46. Alex.
Well, so wait, can I make one more point?
Yes.
Here's the weird thing about that play too. And I think they should have gone for it. I don't like the math dictating it, but I think common sense tells you in that spot to go for it.
Right.
To me, it's about him not trusting the offense more than him over trusting the defense. But the weirdest thing to me, even if they knew they were going to punt, 2 things. First off, it's 4th and 3. Try to get him to jump off sides.
Yeah.
They sent the punt team right out there.
Yeah.
And take the delay. Try to get them to jump off sides, and you take the delay there. It makes it an easier kick. The Cowboys got the ball at the 20. Jake Bailey hasn't quite been what he was last year, but I think he pins them inside the 10 there.
Yeah.
So to me, the issue isn't necessarily that they punted. It's that there was no hesitation. They didn't even try to get the Cowboys to jump. And that tells me, regardless of what happened on that fourth down, whether they went for it or not, Bill didn't think the offense was going to score from that point. They had given up on the offense already at that point in the game.
So we just went over for the first 10 minutes of the show about all of the things that happened in terms of the play discrepancy in this game and how the Patriots defense held Dallas down for the first 6 drives of the game and then broke the dam on the 7th drive. The dam had already been broken in overtime. The odds of the Patriots stopping Dallas and holding it, because remember, at that point, all Dallas needs is a field goal, right? They don't even need the touchdown. They just need a field goal to beat you at that point. The odds of the Patriots holding Dallas and forcing a punt on that drive, I don't care about the math on it. Just common sense tells you that the odds are very, very slim that the Patriots defense is going to get a stop, especially with the way that they looked on the last 5 drives before the drive in overtime, right? I mean, there's just no way that they were going to get that stop. So you look at it that way. But most importantly, and the word that the term that's, I think, really what we're all getting at here is that Bill Belichick has developed a tactic to be loss averse, right? He is trying not to lose. Instead of going out there and playing to win, Belichick has decided that it's best for his football team to try not to lose. And his reasoning on EEI on Monday morning, they asked him, did you think about going for it on 4th down and overtime? And he said, no, not really, because 1 first down beats you because they're already in field goal range. So he's already thinking about it on the other side. He's not thinking, oh, if our offense on 4th and 3 picks this up, we could win the game. He's thinking, if we don't pick it up, we're going to lose the game, right? And that's how you get yourself beat, especially when you're the underdog. If you're the team, if you're Tom Brady's Patriots and you're the dynasty era Pats and they want to play it more conservatively, I don't necessarily mind that, because if you punt it over to the offense on 4th down, then Brady is probably going to come back and score on the next drive anyways, right? So I'm not as concerned about it if you have a Brady still here. But now that you are the underdog and you are the team that is trying to beat the top seed in the NFC, you have to play more aggressive. And the frustrating part about it to me is, Alex, how much times did we joke and laugh and point fingers at opponents that would come into Gillette Stadium, play the Patriots tough for 3.5 quarters, and then kick a field goal or punt it back to Brady or do something conservatively, right? All the time we used to say, you don't beat Brady like that, right? You're not going to beat Belichick and Brady like that, kicking field goals and not going for it and not playing aggressively. Boo you. Now the Patriots have become that team that is not the favorite, that is not the team that's in position to play conservatively, and they're the ones playing it. They were underdogs at home to Dallas. Underdogs at home. And they're punting on every 4th down. They're punting in overtime. They're kneeling before the half. You are not going to pull off upsets in this league playing that conservatively.
Yeah, I mean, just to go back to that comment about, if they get 1 first down, they're in field goal range, it kind of proves my point. He didn't trust the
offense, right?
Right. He did not go for it.
We're going to lose if I do this instead of we're going to win if we do this. Right. And that's a backwards way of thinking it.
He did not go for it because he wanted to put the defense on the field so bad. The reason he didn't go for it is because he didn't think the offense could do it.
Right.
I'll tell you what, this offense should be able to pick up 4th and 3. They absolutely should. They should be able to pick up 3rd and 3, but they haven't been able to, just talent-wise. People are talking about this team's not talented enough.
Oh, it's bullshit. That's
my wagon. They're not the 07 Patriots. This team has a ton of talent.
Yeah.
This team has a ton of talent. It's usage. It's personnel choices. It's play calling decisions that are killing them right now. This team's talented enough to pick up that 4th and 3. Absolutely, they're talented enough to pick up that 4th and 3. But they have to be put in the right spot to do it, and that's been the issue.
So the talent thing is easily the most frustrating narrative, I think, about this Patriots team this season. You want to talk about talent last year?
Yeah, they weren't as talented last year. Yeah.
Yeah. That is 100% fair.
Let's run through it. This team has talent. Where? In the comments. Let's run through it. Damien Harris, good back. Damien Harris, legitimate starting running back. They're missing a second back as a legitimate starting back. They have at least two top 15 tight ends. Jonnu Smith, he might not be 10, but he's probably 11 or 12. They got two top 15 tight ends. I think Nelson Agholor, I know he had the drop. Nelson Aguilar's the legit third option, which he is on this team. I like Jacoby Myers in the slot, and Kendrick Bourne has shown us a ton.
Yeah.
Kendrick Bourne, again, it's not Brady, it's not Moss, Welker, Stallworth, but it's a legitimate group.
Yeah.
Last year, everybody
averaged 11 yards per attempt in this game.
I would say Aguilar's an upgrade over Bird. I would say Myers is an upgrade over the player he was last year. Who's Bourne even stepping in for from last year's team?
Well, it should have been Mo Sanu, right?
Right. So he's an upgrade. So Kendrick Bourne is an upgrade over nobody.
Right.
The offensive line, in theory, has talented players. They're just banged up, and Isaiah Wynn has been the one guy where you can point to a lack of talent. He's been disappointing.
Right.
And then defensively, we've seen it. Barmore's been excellent. Judon's been excellent. Yeah. Jamie Collins, when they put him on the field, which isn't enough, looked good yesterday. J.C. Jackson had a good
maybe
game
not
yesterday.
so much with Jamie Collins. Blew some gaps in the run game for sure.
All right. There were a couple moments in coverage where he stood out to me. I didn't watch him.
So my whole thing about going.
Wait, hang on. So that would go to the point.
Yeah.
Juwan Bentley should be in the game in running situations.
Right.
Collins should be in the game in passing situations. It was backwards yesterday. So that proves the point. It's not a talent thing. It's asset management.
I look at the talent conversation. The reason why I get frustrated by that is because the Patriots have now gone toe-to-toe with Tampa Bay and Dallas, right? Two of the best teams in the NFL, two teams that very well could be in the NFC Championship game in a couple of months. And they came overtime away from beating Dallas and a field goal away from beating the Bucs. If you have no talent on this roster, then you're losing those games like the Jets lose those games, right? Or you're losing those games like the Jaguars lose those games. They have hung tough with good teams this year in those two teams. And the other thing that I look at with this is that, and we talk about this all the time with Bill, the GM, right? In terms of, okay, Bill, the GM is hurting Bill, the coach, because he's not getting good players in here and yada, yada, yada. Bill, to me, is a blessing and a curse in so many different ways because his system and his ability to coach the fundamental and core techniques of his system is still fantastic. It's still top notch. And in a lot of ways, because they have Bill Belichick, they're in all these football games, right? Because they are so sound in their schemes and their game plans are solid. But in the other vein, he really is killing them with game management. And when you see these things counteracting each other, you say, oh man, if they were to move on from Bill, then the football would get worse, but maybe they would be more aggressive, right? And you go back and forth with all these things. And it's really difficult to evaluate Bill as a coach in that essence, because he is still a very good big picture coach, right? The systems still work. The game plans still work when they're executed correctly, but the little things are starting to pass him by a little bit. And that's where I really think that this team needs to focus moving forward, is being able to focus all of that stuff back into where it needs to be and getting it back right on track. When's the last time they talked about this after the game? Devin McCourty did, that they didn't have enough defensive backs because they had some injuries in the defensive backfield. Jawan Williams was a healthy scratch. Miles Bryant did not get called up for the game from the practice squad.
And they had a spot. They only elevated one guy.
Right. And they didn't have enough defensive backs. That's game day roster management. You and I have talked about this off the air a little bit the other night after the game. You have Jakob Johnson active for the game over another DB or over another depth player someplace else, and then you barely use them, right? So roster game day management, game management in game in terms of fourth down and 2-minute drills and stuff like that. And then on top of all of that, the game plan that they rolled out in the first half was working. And I truly felt like they hit the panic button a little bit in the second half, and they started blitzing Prescott, who's amazing against the blitz. And they got burned for it because they weren't getting any pass rush and they weren't getting any heat on the quarterback. They started getting aggressive. They ran a couple of zero blitzes. They ran a zero blitz on the last play of the game, and it didn't work. So I don't know. It really is tough with Bill because there's for so many reasons they are a competitive football team because Bill Belichick is their head coach, but in so many ways he's also holding the team back a little bit, and the coaching staff as a whole. I shouldn't just blame it all on Bill.
So I'll add too, because people are saying, well, you can't look at the Cowboys game and you can't look at the Bucs game because those teams played so bad. Well, if teams keep consistently playing a poor game against you, that just means you might have a good team. Like that's, that means you might have good game plans for these guys.
They do. Yeah.
It's just finishing. It's just finishing at this point. And it's something else you talked about there where they went away, from what was working offensively and they got conservative. This was weird to me when was it Josh or Bill said they ran out of plays in that jumbo
that was Bill on Monday morning. Yeah.
They only ran 50 offensive plays. That's 12 below their season average. So how many plays you'd like to think that was a big part of their game plan, but maybe it wasn't. And let's hope they put some more in because that should be a big part of their game plan.
I always talk about the script. The Patriots ran out on the script, right? They also had a script. They used the script on the first two drives of the game and really the third drive as well. But the scripted touchdown got called back by a holding penalty on James Ferentz, the Myers TD, right? So they had three drives of script essentially. And I always make fun of other teams for running out on the script. Right. Oh, yeah. You had a great first drive against the Patriots defense. You go down the field in 15 plays and score a touchdown with all these scripted screens, reverses, motion, play action, all this kind of creative stuff. But then what do you do the rest of the game? This time it was the Patriots. They did nothing the rest of the game. Right. And it's really frustrating because that Bill is a very, very good coach. That the team is coached well because they're competitive in all these games. Mac's development, I am pretty high on at this point. I think they have him on a great track, especially when you compare him to the other rookie quarterbacks and what they look like. The other rookie quarterbacks, Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, Trey Lance, Zach Wilson, are the bottom 4 QBs in the league in passer rating right now. Right? So, yeah, the situation and all that crap, whatever, that all contributes, right? Mac Jones' head coach is going to be Bill Belichick, right?
Right. So that's, arguably the 4 worst coaches in the league, right? Would you say those 4 quarterbacks?
Or at least inexperienced, right? Guys that haven't been in the league for very long. I don't know if Robert Saleh is a bad coach, but
that's true.
He has only been head coach for 6 weeks.
Yeah. All right. So I'll take Saleh because I actually do like Saleh. But 3 of those guys, 3 of the worst coaches in the league. Nagy's been around long enough to know.
Oh, yeah.
Nagy has been around long enough to know, and Urban Meyer should have never been hired to begin with. We all knew that. And I don't think Kyle Shanahan's one of the worst coaches in the league, but I've been pretty blunt about how I feel about Kyle Shanahan on this show. That's why I'm not jumping on to, hey, it's time to move on from Bill, because
it's definitely not time to move on from Bill.
You're not there yet.
But he's also not free of criticism, right?
You're right. But I just want to address the people who are saying you need to move on from him.
No, that's
same
crazy.
thing. I'm going to say the same thing I said to the people who wanted to move on from Brady in 2017, 2018.
Right.
You don't know what's on the other side of that door.
Yeah. Right.
You do not know what's on the other side of that door. And more often than not, you're not going to like what you see when you open it. So I'll take a Bill kind of refiguring things out over whatever the hell is next. And by the way, I think we all know who's next. And I'll stand by what I just said.
Yeah, no, definitely no need to fire Bill by any means. Don't need to move on from Bill, but certainly his in-game management deserves criticism. And I actually think at this point with this particular team, this season, the in-game management is holding them back way, way more than Bill the GM is holding them back.
Do you think it's Ernie leaving?
I thought about that after the game the other day because I was trying to think of what has changed. Now, they became more conservative even when Ernie was here, but now they've hit rock bottom.
But we also know Ernie was doing less the last couple of years.
Yeah. So they've gone – last year they were 20th in the league and going for it on 4th down when the math told them to go for it. So definitely way more conservative than the rest of the league on average, but not dead last. right? Not all the way at the bottom in those metrics. So this has been a precipitous drop off, right? This has been a slow churning point to get here. And now we're at the point where it's 4th and 3 from your 46 or 4th and 3 from the 50. And we're punting to gain 30 yards of field position. And it's just wild to me, especially with how good Mac Jones looked in this game. And I wanted to bring it back to that because Mac Jones, for the first time, I would say in a couple of years, the Patriots actually beat man coverage in the passing game. The book for the Patriots, really since, I would say 2018, but certainly since 2019, has been play man-to-man on the back end and force their receivers to get off press man coverage and make guys and get open against aggressive man coverage. In this game, Dallas played cover one man-to-man 76% of the time. And Mac Jones threw for nearly 11 yards per attempt. And Hunter Henry caught a touchdown against man coverage. Nelson Aguilar caught a 27-yarder against man coverage. Kendrick Bourne caught the 75-yarder against man coverage. So they were out there actually beating man coverage for once, which is why I feel so optimistic about this, is that Mac was getting the football down the field, threw it deep 4 times, 4 for 4 on 20-plus yard throws, 8.6 air yards per attempt, actually pushing the ball down the field, and they were actually beating man coverage down the field. And all of these things end up looking good on offense. Plus, they ran the ball pretty effectively on offense as well. They averaged over 5 yards per carry with their backs in this game. So the offense looks like it's starting to click a little bit, and now's the time that you have to trust it more to get it over the hump. And if the Patriots call these games a little bit more aggressively and they go for the jugular when the jugular is there, then I think that they're going to be able to win some more of these football games. Now, when we talk about how they fix the issues that are plaguing them, I think number one on the list for a lot of people is the offensive line. But I actually want to talk about the defense for a second. And do you agree, I guess, Alex, with my evaluation of the defense that they kind of are what they are? Because sure, you can make marginal improvements within the season. You get better at certain things. You drill certain things. You have better game plans maybe. But it feels to me like this is the talent level of their defense now, right? They have a good, not great secondary. Matt Judon's really, and Barmore, I would throw in there as well. Those are their 2 guys that really are the guys that are in the pass rush, right? And in this game, the biggest issues that they had were they couldn't pressure Dak Prescott. And
I feel like they did. They didn't get a sack, but they were getting him off his spot quite a bit. Now Dak is Dak, and he's an MVP candidate for a reason. He adjusted, and maybe that's why the pressure didn't look as much. But I think a lesser quarterback, they really get in his head. And you say they are what they are defensively. You say that with kind of a negative connotation. Top 10 scoring defense in the NFL. I think they are what they are, but I mean that in the best way possible. They are what they are, and they are one of the top defenses in the league. I truly still believe that. And again, I actually thought they got some pressure. I think Dak, they made good plays. Dak made better plays, right? What's the line? Those guys get paid too. Matt Judon is starting to get some like Rob Gronkowski-esque non-calls on him. It's held pretty much at least once a drive in that game.
Yeah.
I fully believe in this defense.
Believe in the defense.
This defense this season has given them 4 winning efforts. 4 winning efforts in 6 weeks. 4 unquestionably winning efforts. They're 1-3 in those games.
Yeah.
That's like I don't understand. Again, the yards weren't pretty. I think it was the most yardage Bill Belichick has ever allowed, going back to when he was a DC with the Giants. But at the same time, it was only the 11th time that an opponent's run 80 or more plays against them.
Yeah.
It was a pure volume game. I'll say it again. I will keep saying this as long as I cover football. I don't give a crap about yards. Yards mean nothing to me. Because if you keep points off the board, you did your job. There's no style points on defense. Turnovers are great. Field position's important, but I don't give a crap about yards. They've kept points off the board all season. They're doing their job. They're not if the defense was their biggest problem, if the defense playing this way was their biggest problem, they would be at least 4-2 right now. I feel very confident in saying that.
So I didn't say the defense was bad. I just said the defense was
You said
good.
They were good, not great. I think
they're not great.
I think they're great.
You think they're great?
They're not elite. They're not elite. Top 10 scoring defense. Top 10 scoring defense. Top third of the league. I'd call that great.
So I push back a little bit on the pass.
So the results are great. Let me qualify that. The results are great.
So what I see with this defense, look, pass rush wise, PFF had them at a 27% pressure rate on Dak Prescott. I personally, when I watched the game back, I felt like he had all day to throw. But besides the point, he's one of those guys, I guess, too, that pressure is difficult with him because you're trying to collapse the pocket around him so you don't let him out of the pocket. And in reality, that you're not really beating blocks that way, right? It's not like you're getting free guys to the quarterback because these guys are so worried about contain. That's
what you have to do against Dak Prescott.
To a degree, but I think what ends up happening, a lot of these game plans for the Patriots when they go up against these mobile quarterbacks, the same thing with Deshaun Watson and why Deshaun Watson always has their number. Some of these mobile quarterbacks, not all of them are Lamar Jackson, right? Some of these guys can truly stand in the pocket and beat you from the pocket. Dak Prescott's one of them. Deshaun Watson's another one where they can beat you just as easily throwing from the pocket. And if you give them time and space in the pocket to make throws down the field, and they're going to throw what Deshaun threw for almost 400 last year against them. And this year Dak throws for 446 or whatever it was. So that game plan of contain rush, I think works in theory, but every quarterback has issues, has more time and more space. Kept clean is going to be better, right? They're going to be better kept clean than versus under pressure. And then you also add into the fact with Dak that you're rushing for all of those four guys are 270 plus pounds, and he's so nimble that he just goes over here to his left, goes over here to his right, and all of a sudden he's got another second and a half. Right. So I think that the lack of pass rush really contributed to this game a lot. But most importantly, when I look at this secondary, last 2 weeks, Alex, there's been a lot of guys open against this secondary, a lot of guys open. And part of this to me is just football in 2021 is different than it was 20 years ago. And you're not going to have 01 Pats defense or 03 Pats defense probably ever again in the way that the rules are set up. So to me, this defense is good enough to keep them in games, and they're good enough to keep the game competitive, and they're good enough to not get blown up the doors off of them. Right. And they're good enough to keep the points per game down and all that kind of stuff. But are they difference making on that side of the ball? I think they can be. Are they tone setting difference making on that side of the football where unless they're going up against Zach Wilson, right, or a quarterback like that, when they play Dak or they play a game against a good offense, are they able to go out there and impose their will and set the tone and dominate that game from start to finish?
I think they can be. I really think they can. It probably comes more from the defensive front. We're used to that tone coming from the secondary the last couple of years. I think it more so comes from the front now. I think they can be. Again, they showed flashes.
Can they be, or are they, though? I'm going to press you on this. Like, are they right now a defense that you are confident in going up against a good team, a good offense, and they can go in there and shut it down for 4 quarters?
Through 65 plays, yes. If you're going to ask them to play 85, 90 plays, no, because that's any defense. But again, you look at the stops they got early in that game. They set the tone. The first half of that game, right? When if that game ended at halftime, all of the columns would have been Patriots defense set the tone against an elite offense. That's what it would have been.
Right.
The team is just any like you talked about, just the way the game works in the modern era. You can only ask so much of however good your defense is. You can only ask so much of your defense. And I think they're just, it's Bill always talks about complementary football. The offense picks up the defense. The defense picks up the offense, special teams. It's the phases capitalizing when one of them makes a play. The defense is doing everything right now. And they kept getting left holding the bag. I think the defense is absolutely doing what's asked of them. It's the other two phases that need to rise to that level. Let me flip the question back on you. And this is super subjective, and I know you're going to hate this question, but just play along.
Okay.
If the offense was playing to the relative level that the defense is,
yes,
what do you think the record would be?
So I think that your point that the defense is holding up its end of the bargain is spot on, because the defense in 2021 is holding up their end of the bargain. And I think a lot of people look at football in the NFL these days, and they are expecting a great defense to be what it was 10 years ago with the Legion of Boom.
Exactly. I think you're, yes.
20 years ago with the 3 and 4 Patriots, right? In the beginning of the 2000s, or the 85 Bears, or the Steel Curtain in the 70s, or whatever. O2 Bucks, whatever great defense you want to name, the 2000 Ravens. They're expecting to see that. That is never coming back. That's never coming back. There's never going to be another defense that all year long is going to be that good. The 19 defense was good for half the year, and then they tailed off, right? The 19 defense was good for 10 games, 10 games, and then they tailed off. The 18 defense was great in the postseason, but wasn't as good in the regular season. These defenses in this day and age, with these quarterbacks, with these skilled players, you are trying to hold the fort. You are just trying not to get overrun, right? That's what defense is nowadays. Right. So in order to be competitive and in order to win more of these football games, the unit that needs to get better and be more aggressive is the offense, 110%. Yep. But my point is that I don't think we are going to see a dominant defense here in New England this year, mainly because that probably doesn't exist anywhere.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. When I say I think the defense is great, I mean relative to modern standards.
Right. So
that's what the defense, again, when I say the defense is great, what I mean is I would say in 4 of the 6 games this year, you could argue a 5th. The only one they didn't do this is Houston, which oddly enough, the Patriots won.
Yeah.
But in 5 of the games, unquestionably, or in 4 of the games, unquestionably, we can debate the Saints game. In 4 of the games, unquestionably, the defense has done enough to put the team in a position to win the game. And in 2021, that's what you're asking from your defense.
Yes.
You're just saying, hey, get us in a spot where we can win the game. They've done it in at least 4, maybe a 5th with Miami. The only game they didn't do it is Houston. In games where the defense has given them a chance to win, they're 1-3 or 1-4. So that's what I mean by I say, and I think the Cowboys game was a perfect example of that. The defense was ultimately on the field when the game was lost. And that's why I think people blame the defense, because it's easy, because you saw the defense on the field as the game ended.
Yeah.
But you got to look at the game as a whole. You know, we talk about game flow. Like, what was the flow of the game? What led up to the 3rd and 25? What allowed that pass to CD Lamb to happen? What happened earlier in the game that created those circumstances? And when you look at that, the offense is on the field in those moments that led up to the spot that the Patriots defense was in.
Yeah. So I think we're in agreement here. We just kind of got here in a twisty way, right? That the defense is good, not great, because in my mind, in today's NFL, defense is good, not great, right? It's just too hard.
So I'm saying, do you think they're great relative? All 32 defenses in the NFL, current defenses, let's say great is the top 3rd. Are they a great defense by that definition?
I just have to say the word great is really killing me. I think that they are
to me, elite is top 5.
I think they are an upper tier defense, right? They're not 16 or worse, right? They're somewhere in the 1 to 15 range.
All right.
So they're above the line, right? They're above the line of demarcation on defense. Offensively, they have a longer way to go.
And I think they can get there offensively. I think that's part of the reason it's so frustrating, because the offense has shown flashes of getting there. There's a number of things, some of which are very much in their control, that are holding them back.
So I want to get to 2 things, because we talked a lot about philosophical things here today, which I like. Sometimes I get caught up in the trees and not the forest, right? So I'm glad that we had some of these.
We didn't do the play breakdown today. I was hoping you were going to do the touchdown to Hunter Henry.
I can do it real quick at the end. I had it pulled. Don't worry. I had it pulled. All right. So the 2 things I want to talk about before we get to that. Number 1, the number one thing, I used to sit with Dante Scarnecchia whenever we had assistant coaches available. Alex, you remember, I used to sit down with Dante Scarnecchia for like 20 minutes and just listen to the guy talk and just listen to what he was talking about with offensive line play and their philosophies, because he was really open about a lot of the Patriots' big picture, broad stroke philosophies with offensive line play. And the one thing that he always harped was continuity. Continuity being number one, that he could work with lesser talent or lesser players, but if he has the same 5 guys out there all the time, that he would get that group to perform well. The Patriots going out in this game on Sunday and going drive to drive essentially with their offensive line is killing them. It is doing them a real disservice, because offensive line play is a lot like a lot of things in sports that are rhythm based, right? You have to get into the game. You have to get a rhythm. You have to get a sweat. You have to. It's like a shooter in basketball or a pitcher in baseball. You kind of have to. You have to feel out the game and then get into it a little bit. And having guys in and then out and then in and then out, and you have Isaiah Wynn playing without practicing, and you have Mike Onwenu playing tackle after only practicing for a couple of days after the COVID, and Onwenu played the best, right? Onwenu probably played the best. They need to settle on an offensive line. And if they settle, the aggressiveness stuff, I think, is a really big part of the reason why they're losing a lot of these games. But I also think a major reason why their offense isn't where it needs to be is the offensive line play, and they need to settle on a 5-man combination, and then they just need to roll with it. Even if Trent Brown in theory is better, or Isaiah Wynn in theory is better, they need to settle on a 5-man combination. And if Justin Herron is at left tackle, then Justin Herron is at left tackle.
Yeah. Isn't that what I said last week? Right? That you got to figure it out at this point. You can't keep, and by figure it out, if they want to test players, and it's probably too late in the season for this, but here we are. It's got to be game to game. It can't be drive to drive, half to half. You're just doing the players a disservice.
Yeah.
You got to pick your 5, and obviously health's a big part of this, but have they had a game yet this year where all 5 linemen played 100% of the snaps? I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
That's generally, outside of health, that's generally how they operate, right? So they need to do that this week. Pick your 5, and unless one of those guys gets hurt, that's your 5. And whatever you think that 5 should be, I would honestly put Wynn on the bench. I'd probably go Herron, Karras, Andrews. I guess I don't know who I'm putting at the other guard. Onwenu.
Mason, assuming Shaq.
Mason, thank you. I don't know why I missed. Yeah, because he was inactive last week. Like that's, or I guess Mason would be on the left side, right? Did I get that backwards?
No. He's on the right side, right guard.
So I'd go Herron, Karras, Andrews, Mason, Onwenu. Go with those 5. Put them out there and keep them out there. If Karras starts to struggle, if Onwenu starts to struggle, right, you got to ride or die with them. And just let it happen. I think that has to be what they do here.
So I'm not 100% sold that they'll bench Isaiah Wynn just because they picked up his $10 million 5th-year option. And I feel like they almost need to see if he can figure this out, because first 18 games of Isaiah Wynn's career, he was a solid left tackle in the league. And somehow, for some reason, the dam broke on him, right? For some, whatever happened, I don't know. But something happened with Isaiah Wynn. Maybe it was trading his buddy Sony, right? Maybe he's upset that Sony Michel's not here. I don't know. But something happened with Isaiah Wynn, and he is just completely fallen off. So if Trent Brown is healthy, then I think Trent Brown eventually comes back and plays left tackle, right? I'm not fully convinced that Trent Brown is ever going to be healthy again for this team, and I'm not counting on it until I actually see it, because I was told multiple times he's coming back, and then next thing you know, he lands on injured reserve. So I have no idea if Trent Brown is actually going to come back. So your line that you mentioned, Herron, Karras, Andrews, Mason, and Onwenu at right tackle, those are the 5 guys that are playing the best, right? Those are the 5 guys that are currently playing the best. Will they expect Wynn to come out of this rut and start to turn it around? potentially, and I could see him being at left tackle. They are not moving Isaiah Wynn to guard. Everybody keeps on throwing since the day they drafted him. People keep on throwing at me, move Isaiah Wynn to guard. It's not happening. They don't see him as a guard. They see him as a tackle. So we'll see what happens in terms of if they trust Teron enough to go with him over Wynn, even though Wynn is the first round pick and the $10 million fifth-year option. The investment is Isaiah Wynn. So we'll see if they're willing to bench that. The other element of this I wanted to bring up quickly with the offense, Ramondre Stevenson. Heck yeah.
Love he was awesome. He was awesome.
Let's get Ramondre Stevenson in the game, and let's get Brandon Bolden back on special teams and nowhere near the offense.
But they still don't have enough backs. Even if you do that, you have to activate JJ Taylor. And even that, like I'm a broken record at this point. Everybody say it with me. They need to bring in another back. And Lamar Miller just signed to somebody's practice squad. I didn't see who. I think it was Jacksonville, maybe. You can, nothing against Stevenson. I do think he should play more, but the bodies just aren't there. They still need another back. I'm happy Stevenson's kind of back in the swing of things and he looked good and awesome. Let's hope that keeps going. They still need another back.
Yeah, I agree that they need another body, but it's so refreshing to see a guy like Ramondre Stevenson start to come on here in the passing game because he is so much more dynamic than Brandon Bolden. It's night and day how much more dynamic he is.
Would you say, and maybe I'm reaching a little bit, that first pass he caught, right? Remember it for the first down? It's a little James White-esque there.
Yeah.
Making the linebacker miss, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, he had the whole – so they vacated the entire underneath flat for him against Leighton Vander Esch, and Leighton Vander Esch didn't even – I don't even think he touched him, right?
No, he didn't. And Leighton Vander Esch is a good player, too, when he's healthy. He's a good player.
Didn't even come close. A great cut, got up the field 13 yards, and then they hit him for 21 up the seam a few plays later. So Ramondre Stevenson's shiftiness, his ability to make guys miss – his ability to come out of the backfield and catch some passes. If Brandon Bolden was explosive, he'd be Ramondre Stevenson, right? They're about the same size. They're kind of built similarly. So this offense is so much more dynamic. If they can get Ramondre Stevenson to be this good in the passing game and they put Brandon Bolden on the bench, they are so much more dynamic as a passing offense with that group out there. And the seam throw is a thing of beauty. You put Johnny Smith in the backfield also with him, and now all of a sudden he has some threats coming out of the backfield. You can go up the seam and you get 3 verticals to that side of the field and you flood the zone. Those are the types of things that you can do when the back out of the backfield is actually a factor in the passing game. So that was great to see as well. I thought that this offense is really starting to come along. I want to pull up the plays because, Alex, we wanted to get into some of these plays. So I'll start with the Hunter Henry touchdown. And I think the great part about this play is that they get single high, right? Because they're in 12 personnel. They have Johnny Smith and Hunter Henry on the field together at once. And they get into single high man-to-man here. And the trust that Mac shows in Hunter Henry to just win his route and get to the spot and then win on the catch point. This is, that they've built this chemistry if he's making this throw. Because
we saw this in camp a ton.
Yeah. So this is everybody, when you talk about no look passes, they think of Patrick Mahomes throwing his sidearm and his eyes are over here and he's throwing the ball over there. Right. Mac essentially no looks this pass to Hunter Henry. He never actually looks or stares at Hunter Henry to watch him win the route. He just trusts that Hunter Henry is going to win the route and be in the right place. So as we roll the play a little bit, have the post safety in the middle of the field. And as Mac gets into his drop, he's looking down the right side of the field to try to keep that safety in the middle of the field. He's looking off the safety. So he holds the safety in the middle of the field. And then right after holding the safety in kind of the same motion, he's just going to let this ball go. And it's a touchdown. Hunter Henry he doesn't even look at Hunter Henry, right? He doesn't even look at Hunter Henry. He just knows my guy's going to win this. I'm going to give him a chance to make the play. And by holding the safety in the middle of the field, the safety over the top is late to help on the seam route. So this is that's trust, that's anticipation, pre-snap alignment, being able to see it pre-snap, and just knowing where your guy is going to win, and knowing and trusting that your guy is going to make a play.
Can I add one point to this? And you tell me if I'm wrong, but just if I'm reading this right. So part of the reason that play worked, right, is I don't know if it's a corner or linebacker, whoever's covering Henry here is on outside leverage.
Correct.
This play doesn't work if that guy has inside leverage because Mac throws it before the break. This is set up because of the post touchdown last week. This is built off the post touchdown last week because I bet they're taking outside leverage on Hunter Henry because they saw him run that play. So this is where we talk about the progress. These plays are, again, if I'm wrong, if I'm reading too much into it, tell me, but it feels like this built off the touchdown in Houston last week.
I don't know if it necessarily built off that touchdown, but your point about leverage is really critical, right? Because he knows lined up at the snap. This entire play is predetermined by Mac Jones before the ball is even snapped, right? Because he knows he has the safety in the middle of the field. He knows he has Hunter Henry up the seam on an outside leverage defensive back. It's Malik Hooker, the safety, playing Hunter Henry. Malik Hooker has outside shade right before the snap, right? So he knows he's got Henry curling up the seam, outside leverage, post safety in the middle of the field. All he's got to do is hold the safety, the deep safety, that is, right?
Right.
All he's got to do is hold the deep safety. Hunter Henry is going to have leverage on the route and then just put the ball in the right spot. And that's how he's able to let it go so freely and just let it rip. And this is something that I went back and I was watching some of the week 2 game against the Jets to look ahead to the Jets for this week. And these are the types of throws, and this one to Aguilar too, that Mac just wasn't making back in week 2, right? He just wasn't playing this open. He wasn't playing this freely. And I think a lot of people put it, McDaniels has to let him throw the ball down the field. McDaniels has to scheme up chances for him to throw deep. These are the types of throws that Mac just wasn't pulling the trigger on necessarily. And now he's pulling the trigger on it. Same thing with this one. Once again, Aguilar at the top of the screen, man-to-man coverage, isolated man-to-man coverage against a single high safety on the burst corner. Fake the over route, fake the crosser, break on the corner, and Mac Jones is going to get pressure in his face, but he just trusts his guy and Nelson Aguilar to win one-on-one on this rep, right? I mean, Aguilar, he starts his throwing motion before Aguilar even breaks here at the top of the route, and he just knows the safety is not going to be a factor. He's in the middle of the field. My guy's going to win the route. I'm just going to let it rip, put it up there, and let Aguilar make the catch. These are man-to-man coverage situations. These are guys in Henry and Aguilar who are going out there. They signed them to do this, and they're going out there and they're beating man-to-man coverage. This is good news for the Patriots. And Mac is letting the ball go, right? So all these things are starting to come together. Now you have the touchdown to Kendrick Bourne. This is the end zone view of the same play. Just let it go. Trust my guy to win the one-on-one. And Aguilar is able to do it with pressure in his face. Now, here's the touchdown. And to Bourne, I mean. A lot of people, I think, have broken down this play and said that the safety took a terrible angle to it, and it wasn't really a smart throw by Mac Jones to throw this ball at the end of the day. And I actually think I understand, based off of watching it a couple of times, what Mac Jones was thinking and why he threw this ball where he threw it. So he has Kendrick Bourne here at the bottom of the screen on the double move on Trevon Diggs. And the Cowboys are going to rotate the safeties. They're going to have this safety insert into the box, and this safety is going to rally back into the middle of the field as middle of the field help. And when Bourne wins on this route at the bottom of the screen on the double move, and he gets up the field, the safety is thinking here, the deep safety is thinking that Mac's going to throw this ball into the boundary, right? Because that's where you would throw a vertical route. The guy stacks the defender, and you throw the ball into the sideline and lead him into the boundary. So this safety, is helping over the top in this direction. So what Mac does is he sees that, and he actually rips it inside of the safety. So I think he puts this ball here on purpose. And he knows that Kendrick Bourne is going to come across the safety's face and beat the safety to the spot here if he puts enough zip on it. And that's exactly what happens. And it throws off the angle for the safety. So I actually think that in a way, Mac Jones threw Kendrick Bourne open on this play. And this is his best downfield throw of his career, right? I mean, obviously the furthest downfield throw.
Yeah.
And just if he throws this outside the numbers, then I think the safety and Trevon Diggs have a better chance of making this pick. Yep. Right? Because the safety is going to help here over the top, and Diggs is getting back into the play. Instead, he throws it right here into the middle of the field, and he allows Kendrick Bourne to cut into it, and he beats the safety that way. So just some really encouraging signs from Mac Jones that he's letting these plays rip, and he's letting these throws go. I don't know, in week 2, I mentioned it. I don't know if he's doing that anymore. Right? I don't know if he's doing that back then in week 2. I don't know if he's doing first 5 weeks of the season. He has 4 completions out of 19 attempts on passes of 20 plus yards. In one game, he was 4 for 4. So these are the types of things that you hope you get to build on with the Patriots.
Yeah. The one other thing I'd add to that, and I didn't, I can't remember who I saw say this. This wasn't my original idea, but that safety, Jaron Curse for Dallas, right? In similar situations, he's been overplaying that ball all year.
Yeah.
So that might be, it seems like something too that maybe against an elite deep safety, that ball is picked off. Like if it's Devin McCourty back there, right? That ball's picked off.
Right.
But Max saw on film, he knows how Curse is going to react to that. So he knows he could, like, most safeties would have picked that off. Well, it's not most safeties. It's Jaron Curse. It's Mac's job to know how Jaron Curse is going to react to that throw, to that route. That's why they watch as much film as they do. And Mac it might have just been an instinct thing, but it's also very possible Mac knew in that situation what kind of route Curse was going to take to that ball and knew he was safe throwing it.
Yeah, I think he threw him open. I thought it was a great throw. I thought it was exactly where it should have been based off of the corner to Diggs underneath it and also the safety coming over the top. I think he's picked off if he throws that ball outside the numbers, but he's able to let Kendrick Bourne have a chance. And on all 3 of those plays that we just showed, the touchdown to Henry, the throw to Aguilar, and the touchdown to Bourne, all 3 of those plays have one thing in common, and that is Mac Jones giving his guys a chance to make a play down the field for him. And all 3 of those guys came through. You start stacking those types of plays together, those explosives. We've talked about this so many times, Alex, right? Can they win with an offense that's playing within 20 yards? Well, those plays were explosive plays down the field. And if they can keep making those, then they're not going to be a dink and dunk offense. And they're going to be an offense that can push the ball down the field. So exciting stuff out of Mac Jones and the Patriots offense. We keep on coming back to that word, moral victories, right? We keep on coming back to that. A lot more moral victories here. We didn't really answer the question of can the Patriots turn this thing around, I guess, fully. I think we sort of got there.
Well, I think we said how they can. It's just they have to do it. Right?
Yeah.
Because that's what, again, a lot of what they need to do to turn around feels like it's pretty simply in their control. It's not one of these easier said than done things. They just have to do it.
Yeah. Yep. Again, get that offensive line figured. The 3 points, I'll end it on this. Get the offensive line figured out. Get Bill out of his bunker, right? Get Bill to be a little bit more aggressive. And then the third and final thing I would say is that the secondary needs to figure itself out a little bit. Last 2 weeks, there have been too many open guys down the field. It's that simple. And I'm not too caught up in the yards either, but they just have allowed the Texans threw all over them too. So at some point, you have to look at that secondary in this pass defense and say, there needs to be improvements there. If they can improve all 3 of those areas, I do think they're going to start winning some football games because Mac is playing well enough to win the games. The defense is probably playing well enough on the whole to win some games. So I think they're going to get by here and start stacking together some wins here shortly. And Alex and I are going to be back on the podcast on Friday morning to discuss a game that the Patriots definitely should win, and that is against the New York Jets. Alex, I can't imagine that Zach Wilson's going to play as poorly as he did in week 2.
So I talked about this with Matt Dolph on my 98.5 The Sports Hub podcast. Over under 3.5 picks.
I think under. I don't think Zach Wilson's going to be good, but I don't think he's going to be as bad as he was the first time around.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
So I say under.
Well, that's why I said 3.5, not 4.5. So.
I think we'll learn a lot, though, about because the Patriots in week 2 of this season were also very much a work in progress, right? I mean, that team, second start of his career for Mac Jones, a lot of new faces in the free agency. So that team was very new and green as well, same as the Jets were. The Patriots are at home against the Jets. if they actually truly have the talent that we were talking about earlier, right? Is this team talent depleted or not? If they truly have the talent that we think that they do, this should be an absolute pantsing of the New York Jets, right? They should win this game even more convincingly than they won the first one, because I felt like the first time against the Jets, they won that game in a lot of ways because Zach Wilson was so terrible that it wasn't even a game. This game, they should just beat them straight up, whether Zach Wilson throws them 3 picks or not.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
All right, so we'll talk on Friday about Patriots Jets, preview this game, go over some of the things the Patriots can do to beat New York and get back in the win column, and their first win against at Gillette Stadium all year long. 0-4 at Gillette. So hopefully they can get one at home. And Alex, go Sox.
Go Sox, absolutely. Go Sox. We'll go to the game tonight. Dancing on my own, baby. Let's go.
Literally dancing on his own at Fenway Park tonight. Go Sox. Alex and I will be back on Friday, as I mentioned. Subscribe away, Patriots Press Pass, Patriots Beat Podcast, wherever you get your podcasts, and we'll see you Friday. Thanks for watching, everybody.